When everyone else saw junk, Ethan Carter saw opportunity. At a crowded vehicle liquidation auction on the edge of town, dozens of people laughed as a struggling single father spent nearly all his savings on 17 cars nobody wanted. The engines were silent. The paint was faded. Most buyers wouldn't even walk near them. Standing nearby was Victoria Hayes, a powerful automotive CEO known for making million-dollar decisions in minutes. She watched Ethan sign the paperwork and openly questioned whether he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The crowd agreed. Why would a father raising his young daughter alone risk everything on vehicles that looked destined for a scrapyard? But Ethan wasn't buying what everyone else could see. He was buying something hidden. And 30 days later, when the truth finally came out, the same people who laughed at him were left speechless. What exactly had Ethan discovered that nobody else noticed? Ethan Carter tightened the last bolt on a customer's pickup truck and wiped his hands on a worn shop towel. The repair garage was small, squeezed between an old hardware store and a vacant building on the edge of town, but it paid the bills. Most days were predictable. Oil changes, brake repairs, engine diagnostics. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. The clock on the wall showed nearly 6 in the evening. "Dad." The familiar voice instantly pulled a smile from his face. His 12-year-old daughter Lily appeared in the doorway carrying her school backpack. Her brown hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she looked exhausted after a long day. "You ready to go?" she asked. "Almost. Just finishing up." Lily set her backpack on a workbench and looked around the garage. "You fixed 4 cars today." Five, she laughed. "That's a new record. Only because one of them barely needed anything." She grinned. For Ethan, moments like this mattered more than anything. Ever since his wife passed away from an illness several years earlier, it had been just the two of them. Life had not been easy. There were months when every dollar mattered. Months when unexpected bills arrived at exactly the wrong time. Months when Ethan questioned whether he was doing enough. But through everything, he had promised himself one thing. Lily would never feel alone. As they prepared to leave, Ethan noticed a folded newspaper sitting near the office counter. One of his customers had left it behind earlier. He casually picked it up. A small advertisement near the bottom of the page caught his attention. Fleet liquidation auction. Commercial vehicles. Company closure. Everything must go. Saturday morning. Ethan read the notice twice. Then a third time. "What is it?" Lily asked. "Maybe nothing." "That means it's definitely something." He chuckled. "An auction." Lily walked closer. "Cars. Looks like it." She immediately became interested. Ever since she was little, she had loved watching her father work on vehicles. Not because she cared about engines. She simply enjoyed spending time with him. "You thinking about buying one?" "I don't know. You always say that right before you start thinking very hard." Ethan laughed again. "Maybe I'll stop by and look." "Can I come?" "Sure." "Awesome." The next few days passed quickly. Work remained busy. Bills remained annoying. Life remained ordinary. But the auction stayed in Ethan's mind. By Saturday morning, curiosity had won. The auction lot sat on the outskirts of town behind a chain-link fence. Rows of aging vehicles stretched across the property. Pickup trucks, cargo vans, utility vehicles, service cars. Most looked neglected. Dust coated the windshields. Paint had faded under years of sunlight. Several tires were flat. People wandered through the rows carrying clipboards and coffee cups. Professional buyers, dealers, collectors, investors. Most walked past the older vehicles without slowing down. Ethan and Lily moved more carefully. He inspected details others seemed to ignore. Maintenance stickers, service records, tire wear patterns, signs of previous repairs. Lily watched him crouch beside one vehicle. "What are you looking at?" "The little things." "Like what?" He pointed toward the engine compartment. "Most people see dirt. And you don't." "I see evidence." She tilted her head. "That sounds mysterious." "It isn't." "Yes it is." Ethan smiled. The truth was that years of experience had trained him to notice things quickly. Many vehicles on the lot looked terrible. But appearance wasn't everything. Some neglected vehicles hid serious mechanical problems. Others only looked bad because nobody had cared enough to clean them. There was a huge difference. As they continued walking, Ethan noticed something unusual. The same maintenance company logo appeared repeatedly across multiple vehicles. The service records were surprisingly consistent. Regular inspections. Scheduled repairs. Documented maintenance. Interesting. Very interesting. Most buyers focused on what was visible. Ethan focused on history. Near the center of the lot stood a group of 17 vehicles parked together. At first glance, they appeared to be among the least attractive options available. Several had peeling paint. One had a cracked mirror. Another had rust spots near the wheel wells. Many people ignored them entirely. But Ethan stopped. Then he stayed there. For a long time. Lily noticed. What? Nothing. That means something. He laughed softly. You're getting too good at reading me. It's a daughter superpower. He began checking vehicle identification numbers and service labels. The pattern continued. Maintenance. 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 Whoever had managed this fleet had been unusually disciplined. A thought formed in his mind. Then another. And another. By the time the auction officially started, Ethan had already made a decision. The bidding began. Vehicles sold quickly. Some went for impressive amounts. Others barely attracted attention. When the group of 17 vehicles came up for bidding, the energy changed immediately. People looked bored. A few buyers shook their heads. One dealer whispered something that caused nearby attendees to laugh. The opening price was low. Very low. The auctioneer waited. Silence. Then Ethan raised his paddle. A few heads turned. Another buyer briefly increased the bid. Ethan responded. The competitor hesitated. Then stopped. The bidding slowed almost immediately. Nobody seemed interested. Within moments, Ethan found himself as the highest bidder. The auctioneer called for additional offers. None came. The final price landed at just over $2,500 for all 17 vehicles. Sold. The gavel came down. Several people exchanged amused looks. Someone quietly muttered that storage fees would probably cost more than the vehicles themselves. Another laughed. Ethan ignored them. Lily looked both excited and nervous. Did we really just buy 17 cars? We did. 17. Yes. That's a lot of cars. It definitely is. As paperwork was completed, a luxury SUV rolled into the auction area. People immediately recognized the driver. Victoria Hayes, Chief Executive Officer of one of the region's fastest-growing automotive companies. Confident, successful, respected, she stepped out and reviewed several auction results with her staff. While passing through the lot, she noticed Ethan signing documents. One employee quietly explained what had happened. Victoria glanced toward the row of vehicles. Then back at Ethan. You bought those? She asked. Ethan nodded politely. I did. Victoria looked genuinely surprised. All of them? Yes. For a moment she studied the vehicles. Then she smiled. Not cruelly. Not aggressively. Just with the certainty of someone accustomed to being right. Well, she said, that's certainly a bold decision. Sometimes bold works out. Sometimes. Several nearby attendees listened carefully. Victoria gestured toward the fleet. I hope they bring you some luck. The tone sounded polite, but the meaning was clear. She believed he had made a mistake. A very expensive mistake. Ethan simply nodded. Thank you. Victoria continued walking. The conversation lasted less than a minute. Yet the reactions around them said everything. Most people agreed with her. By late afternoon, transport trucks began moving the vehicles toward Ethan's workshop. One after another. 17 silent reminders of the risk he had taken. As the sun started setting, Lily stood beside him watching the final vehicle arrive. Dad. Yeah. Are you scared? Ethan looked at the long row of dusty vehicles. For a few seconds he didn't answer. Maybe a little. Good. He laughed. Good. Because if you're not scared, then it's probably not a real adventure. He shook his head. Where do you come up with this stuff? She smiled proudly. They walked toward the first vehicle together. The evening air was cool. The garage was quiet. The auction crowd was gone. The laughter was gone. The opinions were gone. Now it was just Ethan, Lily, and 17 vehicles that everyone else believed were worthless. Ethan opened the hood of the first one. His expression immediately changed. Lily noticed it at once. What is it? Ethan stared silently at something hidden beneath years of dust. Something he absolutely had not expected to find. And in that moment, he realized the auction story might be very different from what everyone believed. For several long seconds, Ethan simply stared into the engine compartment. Lily stepped closer. What did you find? He carefully brushed away a layer of dust covering a metal component near the firewall. Then he smiled. A real smile. Not the polite smile he used when customers complained. Not the tired smile he used after exhausting workdays. This was different. That's interesting. What is? Someone took very good care of this vehicle. Lily looked confused. It doesn't look like it. That's because you're looking at the outside. He pointed towards several service markings. These parts were replaced not long before the fleet was retired. That's good. Very good. The excitement in his voice surprised even him. Most neglected vehicles told a story of skipped maintenance and delayed repairs. This one told a different story. Ethan spent another hour inspecting the first vehicle. Then another. Then another. As darkness settled outside, a pattern began emerging. The fleet was far from perfect. Several vehicles definitely needed work. Some required replacement components. Others needed extensive cleaning. A few had electrical issues. But none of them showed signs of catastrophic failure. That alone was remarkable. By midnight, Ethan finally locked the garage. His mind refused to slow down. Something about the auction still didn't make sense. Why would a company maintain vehicles so carefully and then sell them for almost nothing? The numbers didn't add up. The following morning, Ethan returned before sunrise. Lily arrived shortly afterward carrying breakfast sandwiches. You've already been working, haven't you? Maybe. You were definitely working. Possibly. She rolled her eyes. Over the next several days, the garage transformed into a massive project site. Every spare moment went into the fleet. During normal business hours, Ethan handled customer repairs. At night, he worked on the auction vehicles. The schedule was exhausting, yet for the first time in years, he felt genuine optimism. Not because he expected instant success. Because the more he learned, the more convinced he became that everyone had underestimated these vehicles. Unfortunately, the town had reached a different conclusion. Rumors spread quickly. People talked. People guessed. People exaggerated. By the end of the week, many residents believed Ethan had practically ruined himself financially. At a local diner, two customers discussed the auction over coffee. At a gas station, another person claimed Ethan would probably be forced to sell everything at a loss. Even some longtime acquaintances expressed concern. One afternoon, an old friend named Carl stopped by the garage. I heard about the fleet. You probably heard plenty. Carl laughed. That obvious? A little. Carl looked around at the parked vehicles. You sure about this? Reasonably sure. Reasonably. That sounds better than completely. Carl folded his arms. Look, I'm not trying to discourage you. But 17 vehicles. I know. You could still scrap some of them. Maybe. You'd recover part of the money. Ethan appreciated the concern. Carl wasn't being negative. He genuinely wanted to help. But Ethan wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. After Carl left, Lily appeared from the office. You're not selling them. No. I know. How? Because every time someone tells you to quit, you get that face. What face? That stubborn face. Ethan laughed. I don't have a stubborn face. You absolutely do. The days continued passing. Slowly, progress began appearing. One vehicle started successfully after a series of minor repairs. Another required only a battery replacement and fuel system cleaning. A third needed less work than Ethan had originally expected. Each success strengthened his confidence. But another problem soon emerged. Money. Even relatively affordable repairs become expensive when multiplied across 17 vehicles. Replacement parts, tools, fluids, inspection costs. The expenses accumulated quickly. Ethan sat at his desk one evening reviewing numbers. The calculations were uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Lily entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. Well what? How bad is it? He looked up. Have I mentioned you're getting too good at reading me? A few hundred times. He accepted the coffee. Things are tight. Tight means bad. Tight means careful. That's your grown-up version of bad. He smiled despite himself. Maybe. Lily sat across from him. Are we okay? The question carried more weight than she probably realized. Ethan answered immediately. Yes. He meant it. No hesitation. No doubt. Yes, we're okay. She nodded. That seemed enough for her. The next morning brought an unexpected discovery. While cleaning the interior of one of the vehicles, Lily found a folder hidden beneath a rear storage compartment. Dad. Ethan walked over. What happened? Look. Inside the folder were maintenance records. Hundreds of pages. Inspection reports. Repair histories. Service schedules. Replacement logs. Everything was organized with remarkable detail. Ethan flipped through the documents. His eyes widened, then widened again. This wasn't normal record keeping. This was extraordinary. Every maintenance event had been documented. Every inspection recorded. Every repair verified. Wow, he whispered. What? These are incredible. Good, incredible. Very. The records covered years of operation. More importantly, they confirmed something Ethan had already suspected. The fleet had been professionally maintained almost the entire time it was active. That information changed everything. If similar records existed for the remaining vehicles, their actual value could be significantly higher than anyone realized. For the next several days, Ethan searched through every vehicle. More documents appeared. More evidence surfaced. More questions emerged. The mystery only deepened. If the fleet was maintained so carefully, why had buyers ignored it? The answer seemed simple. Appearance. People had looked at faded paint, dust, and age. Few had bothered investigating further. Meanwhile, news of Ethan's progress slowly reached Victoria Hayes. At first, she paid little attention. Her company managed major projects worth millions. A single father restoring old vehicles wasn't particularly important. Then one of her managers mentioned hearing positive reports. A few days later, another employee mentioned the same thing. Then another. Eventually, curiosity got the better of her. She requested a summary. The report surprised her. Several vehicles were already operational. Multiple inspections suggested the fleet's condition had been underestimated. Victoria reviewed the information twice. Then set it aside. She wasn't ready to draw conclusions. Still, she couldn't completely dismiss the possibility that Ethan had seen something others missed. Back at the garage, a new challenge appeared. Several critical components were becoming difficult to find. The vehicles used specific parts that weren't always available locally. Without them, progress could stall completely. Ethan spent hours calling suppliers, searching inventories, comparing prices. Most options exceeded his budget. The frustration began building. One evening, after another unsuccessful search, he sat alone in the garage. The silence felt heavier than usual. For the first time since the auction, uncertainty began creeping into his thoughts. Maybe he had overlooked something. Maybe the project was larger than he realized. Maybe the skeptics had a point. Then he looked around. 17 vehicles. Several already improving. Evidence